Today's conversation is on transcending time and space for optimal living by not doing anything unnecessarily. So time and space is a lot more malleable than one might think they are. One concept of time is that it's absolute, as in independent of any observer, which progresses consistently. Another concept of time is that it's relative to the observer. I actually keep both of these into consideration for optimal living, yet I'm not overly identified with them or any concept of time actually, and thus may apply one or another or in combination automatically. For example, I may commit by schedule on certain things and commit to other things on the fly beyond schedule, yet everything gets done ideally. I also found out that this deciding between scheduling or not scheduling happens automatically after having released unnecessary bias and controlling beliefs in mind with respect to time and space. This allows the conscious mind to remain silent on this regard, to allow everything to happen automatically and also listen to my intuition where the accurate answer is provided if I have a question or concern for whatever the reason may be, as intuition considers both known and unknown factors. Now, if we support this intuition with logic, we see clearly that if one unnecessarily commits to something, they may also be committing to other things as a result, which could then appear as unnecessary conflict in time or unnecessary steps in space if they did not go by their intuition, which indicated otherwise. Now, we may consciously choose to know, where we can see the patterns in our mind's eye of the unnecessary complexity that could play out, resulting in unnecessary effort in time or unnecessary steps in space, essentially what we are about to unnecessarily self-impose to experience as time and space as a result of not honoring our intuition, which inspires us to remain in our ideal feeling and operate ideally from. And even if one does not choose to consciously know and simply go by the feeling, it's fine, because there are many aspects kept into consideration by the power of your subconscious mind, which actually takes care of everything for us if we only let it move us and guide us ideally via intuition, thus remaining in our ideal feeling and experiencing accordingly. We can refer to this as knowing beyond thinking or reason. I found the result of listening to my intuition and allowing everything to happen automatically was the trimming down of the unnecessary and arriving at the realization of the goal or vision in a more optimal way. And upon reflection, what once involved many hours or many steps and or resources actually did not now. This is one way I like to look at transcending time and space, and even matter, which represents the resources. And by the way, speaking of which, if you're interested in me talking more about my experiences with lucid dreaming, astral projection, and remote viewing, you could type it in the comments, type one of those or a combination, and I'll make a video. And also thank you to everyone who had requested the Holy Guardian Angel video. I actually recorded it shortly after seeing all the comments requesting it, and I'll put a link in the description to that video. So we find that when we operate from a heart and intuition, we move along ideally, as Steve Jobs once said, follow your heart and intuition. Everything else is secondary. It is through this way of being where everything flows organically, appearing to transcend time and space in a more natural and effortless way. Now, this was not always like this for me. Bringing awareness to the unhelpful beliefs towards time and space and releasing identification to them resulted in me being this way. And you can do this as well, as you and I are no different. We all have the inherent ability to do this. I trust today's video will provide insights as to where you are already doing it so you can do it more often if you'd like. A practical recent example of this was, as we discussed in Sunday's video, I was in California last week, and there was a lot of opportunities and people reaching out to meet up. And there were many that I was thinking of meeting up with as well. Now, if I was to think about how to fit it all into the 7 days while I was there, it could result in overthinking. Instead, I allowed intuition to be the guide by remaining in my ideal state of consciousness feeling, exactly like we talked about in Sunday's video, which I'll link to in the description. And I noticed everything was in sync ideally. And it was all back to back, connecting with people, time with myself, time for my projects, yet not in a stressful way. All by navigating from that feeling. In moments, intuition would inspire, and in other moments, everything would happen automatically, by which there was no identification with unnecessary control-based beliefs in relation to time and space that could manifest into whatever appearances of unnecessary force or control. So now, upon reflection, these experiences of transcending time and space occurred while I was in flow state and also moments of Wu Wei. Wu Wei, as in there were moments I was not consciously geared towards any specific outcome, rather simply being, and I observed without bias to experience everything happening naturally and automatically, which upon connecting the dots looking backwards, I saw everything happen faster and easier. And when I was in my flow state in relation to whatever it is that I was doing, upon completion, I would backwards review and acknowledge all occurred faster and easier, and it took, we could say, less time and less steps. Now, I have a series on flow-based living. I'll put a link in the description to that series. Today, I'd like to discuss Wu Wei and how being in it allows us to transcend time and space. It wasn't my intention to experience that from Wu Wei, yet it was what actually happened upon reflection. So Wu Wei is a concept from Taoism. One translation has it as actionless action, which on the surface may not make any sense, yet it makes perfect sense if you reflect back on where you have experienced it in your life as we go through this discussion. And I see it as natural, effortless action in harmony with our natural way of being, which is where you feel one with it all. Now, some of my Taoist friends consider Wu Wei to be the same as flow state, or some say in moments of Wu Wei, there are flow state experiences, and some consider it distinct from flow state. Yet they all said to me that it is in Wu Wei where it does not feel like they are doing anything, yet it appears that they're doing stuff effortlessly and everything appears to be in harmony like one natural rhythm. There's also no identification with force-based or control-based beliefs during Wu Wei. Wu Wei is thus mind-purifying, as it actually releases identification to any force or control-based beliefs. So we could say then that Wu Wei is healing or therapeutic, as we know that unnecessary control and force-based beliefs are the cause of so much unnecessary suffering that shows up physically, mentally, and or emotionally. So I asked ChatGPT to provide some points to contribute to our discussion today on Wu Wei, and it included the following. Although I'm going to share my personal experiences in regards to these points and not its data. So one or a few or a combination of these can bring you into Wu Wei. First, we have effortless action. So I believe that forcing things to happen is not our natural way of being. We are not authentically forceful. We are naturally allowing as awareness of being. Our true self or essence is unconditional. So force is caused by corresponding beliefs in mind. When identification to those beliefs are released, a person's actions flow naturally, authentically, effortlessly, and optimally, which then in regards to transcending time and space, they do not perform the unnecessary, which was a result of the controlling or forceful beliefs. I recommend the video I released last week for letting go of force and control to experience effortless action. I'll put a link in the description to that video. Then we have harmony with the Tao. This can be looked at as being aware of the patterns and rhythms and being in harmony with them, accepting that they are in our favor and not against us. This is where we experience inner and outer harmony. They are experienced as one, like I mentioned earlier. You feel your way. Simply put, allow the natural feeling to be your guide. Which brings us to our next point, spontaneity and intuition. So this is where everything arises naturally from intuition and inner wisdom, rather than being solely based on past rational thinking. Rational thinking as a whole is helpful, yet over-rationalizing is where a person could get stuck in their head. Here we operate from that ideal natural feeling, where we feel one with it all and remain in it without overthinking. Here we may also find that we take spontaneous action outside of what we would normally do and it works out. We could say quantum leaping beyond unnecessary steps and upon reflection, transcending time and space. Then we have effortless skill. In some contexts, I've heard Wu Wei associated with the idea of effortless skill. This means that when one has achieved mastery to such a degree, they experience Wu Wei while practicing or performing. And to others who observe them, their actions appear effortless and graceful. I also found this to be true for skill cultivation. We can learn and learn faster and easier when we release identification to unnecessary control and force-based beliefs in relation to it by simply allowing ourselves to enjoy the process. This is playful, effortless being and learning at the same time, where skill emerges naturally and spontaneously. And there's no judgment or even thought, I find, of mistake, error, failure, etc. Rather, a natural calibration to higher degrees of skill and expression of it. There's also no unnecessary thinking in the process. In demonstration of effortless skill, I see this similar to a Japanese concept called mushin, which means mind without mind, which is very insightful if you are in martial arts or in performing arts, etc. It's very well articulated in a book called The Unfettered Mind, Writings of the Zen Master to the Sword Master by Takwon Soho. I've discussed this in another video, I'll link in the description to it. It states, the mind must always be in a state of flowing, for when it stops anywhere, that means the flow has been interrupted, and it is this interruption that is injurious to the well-being of the mind. When the swordsman stands against his opponent, he is not to think of the opponent, nor himself, nor his sword movements. He just stands there with his sword, which, regardless of all technique, is ready only to follow the dictates of the subconscious. When he strikes, it's not the man, but the sword in the hand of the man's subconscious that strikes. So we see a commonality here of releasing control. This is really how we transcend unnecessary time and space, self-imposed limitations, by releasing control, which Wu Wei encourages. And we've been discussing releasing unnecessary control lately from different perspectives that say the similar or same thing in different ways, or as I like to say sometimes, the same difference. So in summary, we automatically release the unnecessary beliefs of control and force with respect to time and space with Wu Wei. This allows space for the subconscious power to orient the energies and subtle energies, perhaps not visible to the eye, to take care of everything for you. Now, the way this happened for me is by simply accepting that it can happen, firstly, and then taking the opportunities whenever they showed up to practice releasing unnecessary force and control. For example, let's say if plans with friends changed last minute, I would say something to myself like, something else will show up that will lead to the intentional outcome, which was to enjoy my Saturday evening. And it always did, easier and faster, transcending time and space. For example, I recall times going for a walk and then meeting new friends on the walk, and we would hang out for the evening. Time and space transcended right in front of my place, actually. So we accept that this is how reality works for us, and it does. Whereas before, I would have become unnecessarily frustrated because of the controlling beliefs once identified with. Also, as mentioned, intuition. There's no desire to commit unless it feels right. This is how I know it's the language of the heart, my true desire. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I live now, knowing that all is taken care of for me. That feeling is aliveness itself, and I feel life itself wherever I appear to go, which reflects as all in harmony with how I truly am, which upon reflection I acknowledge that all appears in an ideal way, in mutual harmony and contribution with all. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.